This is Jasmine here with a quick critique for you for your style frame. I really like it, and I love that you just took something that you're already working on and also kind of elaborated on it, as you said, and made your own style guide. A couple of things that I'd say. Well, let me answer your questions first. Question one is, I can't really find references for the pig brass looking thing, hoping to get some ideas of what it could be. Okay, so you must be referring to this, and I'm seeing it here, and I think that's, you found a pretty good reference to the original style guide that they had. I just did some quick, whenever you need to find references for something, Google. I mean, if it's not like around you right now, or you know, not accessible to something that you have in person, the best reference is always something physically that you can hold, you can see how it, you know, relates to light and whatnot. But the second best thing is visual references, which I always go to first, like just a Google search, right? So when you said you need this reference for brass, I'm looking at it and it looks kind of like old to me, right? Because it has imperfections. So first I did a search on antique brass, and I'm getting some good things here, right? I'm getting some of, you know, you get just like the broad type of texture reference, but then you also get more detailed stuff like that, you know, you can pull from that kind of thing. And then I went a little further, and I was like, maybe it's aged brass. And then I was like, oh, that actually is feeling more along the lines of right here. Maybe a little bit less, like this is a little too saturated, but this is what I mean, where when you're looking for references on visuals, just do searches as much as a lot in the beginning, and then you can narrow it down to like the key things that you want to portray. Like maybe this really speaks to you, and then you could say, okay, that's closer to what I want, and kind of organize it in a folder, and then you can always reference back to it, right? And then you can even go further, and I went way further, and I was like, well, what about rusted brass? Like if it, I don't think you probably want to go this far, but this is like an example of, you know, you can go as far into it. And again, another great thing about references is like you can have multiple references for, let's say, this claw, right? Because you're kind of pulling your ideas from multiple places. It doesn't have to be just one perfect reference that's going to represent your vision for what it's going to be. You can collect, like you could say, you know, this is good for like the overall base, but maybe I want to add my own unique touch and make it kind of like an old rusty claw. We probably don't, but just an example, like you can pull different pieces from different areas and it will really make it your own. So I hope that answers that question. And the second question is, I'm not sure if my character is lit well for texturing and shading. So I've included the reference balls. I use a key light and HDR lower exposure. Yes, I would say that overall he does feel a little bit too dim. Like I like that you included your reference balls, because even though, you know, for shading, like I said, you want a neutral rig, you also want to portray what a real life scenario is. So you don't want it to be too flat, in that, like, I want to make sure that my hotspots, the specks, aren't going to be blowing out when you put a key light in there with a value of 1, right? So usually I will put, and I do want some kind of shaping so I can see what it looks like in the key light and also in the fill. Like I would never, you want a very neutral rig, so I would never go like beyond 1 for a key, or, you know, a very dark scenario, but you want that kind of, I want to say like studio lighting in a way. So I would go a little bit, looking at this, I think it's a great start. I would just pump up the key value a little, just so we can see when you are working on your shaders, you know, how the highlights are doing, how the specular is hitting. Because if it's too ambient and neutral, you're never going to see that, and it's going to be hard to test that out. Moving on, I will also be creating the hairs in XGen, because it doesn't come with those. Sadly, that is sad. But I think I love your hair reference, by the way. And I like how, you did add to this. You added a lot more detail than the original. And it's great. The one thing I would say is, I'm just looking at it. Oh, I think it's great. I mean, I like that there's an original style guide. My thing is, like, if you wanted to deviate from it, and kind of create it to be more your own with your color choices and whatnot, you can totally do that. But that's up to you. And I think where you have it going now is really good. The one thing that visually for me, I mean, it's pretty obvious that, like, the jeans are for the jeans. I would say, like, I do personal, like a little line, so I can visually be like, okay, that goes there, that goes there. But that's just me being picky, so ignore that. But overall, it does feel a little dim. Like, the pants are just really dark and everything like that. So yeah, I just, up that lighting a bit, so when you move forward, it is all in a good place. I'm just thinking, looking at everything else, it seems pretty straightforward, and I like that. I guess, okay, this is going to be a little paint in the eye, under the eye, but yeah, I'm looking forward to see how this develops. Okay, if you have any other questions, let me know, and I will see you in the group. Bye.